Antarctica is the least explored continent on the planet, but immediately sets several records. For instance, it is in Antarctica that the strongest winds on the planet blow. It was there that the lowest temperature ever was recorded, 89 degrees Celsius below zero. And it is the location of the largest crater on Earth. The Antarctic ice sheet is so heavy that the surface of the coldest continent on the planet has caved in almost 500 meters under the weight of the ice and snow. It is true that the surface of this record-breaking continent has been covered with ice and snow for several millions of years. But this has not always been the case. Mariners and explorers of the past have speculated about this fact. For example, in 1911, expeditions extracted 15 kilograms of geological samples, some of which bore the imprints of fossil leaves from the Permian period. According to paleontological and geological data, this plant grew exclusively in the tropics. And unlike the finds collected by a Swedish expedition, its leaves were not found near the edge of the Arctic Circle, but almost at the pole itself. 50 years later, in the 1960s, this find became one of the main arguments in favor of the theory of plate tectonics. In light of the fact that traces of similar plants have been found in Australia, New Zealand, India, Africa, and South America, it presupposes the existence of a single southern supercontinent called Gondwana. Nowadays, thanks to technology, research is even more productive. Evidence of rainforest growth in Antarctica was obtained from a core sample of sediment deposit taken from the seabed near the 90-million-year-old Sosnovyy Ostrov Glacier. During the first stage, the team discovered a fascinating dense network of roots that spread throughout the entire layer of soil, which was so well preserved that not only could countless traces of pollen, spores, and the remains of flowering plants be seen, but even individual cell structures could be distinguished. New evidence has shown that the ancient polar landscape wasn't merely comprised of temperate forests, but temperate tropical rainforests. This means that the climate of the present ice-cold continent was not just temperate then, but substantially warmer than had previously been assumed. Antarctica was a completely different world. It was alive and flourishing in every sense. In addition to the dense and rich vegetation, here various animals, herbivores, omnivores, and carnivores could be found. Among them were also arboreal forms of animals by all appearances, the same as Marumbiotherrium glacialis, a small marsupial, something resembling a mouse or a possum. Perhaps small sloths that looked very similar to modern-day ones could be encountered on the branches. Among land animals, the most numerous were representatives of the Sparnotheriodontidae family of mammals, a group of extinct South American ungulates or hoofed mammals that somewhat resembled horses. Judging by the structure of the teeth, they were herbivores and reached a body mass of up to 400 kilograms. Also on land, one could come across flightless or cursorial birds. One was ostrich-like, and the other carnivorous and probably quite dangerous. Along the shores of the ancient Antarctic Peninsula, one might run into king-size penguins, and in the sky, falconiforms, falcons and caracaras. In the lakes, temnospondyls waited for prey. They were giant crocodile-like amphibians. For example, Antarctosuchus pallidon. Reptiles of all kinds roamed the land. Impressive, massive predators, a small lizard-like insectivore, Prolacerta, and of course, dinosaurs. It was not just a Jurassic Park, but a whole continent. The most exotic of them was the Cryolophosaurus ellioti, the ice crest lizard. The narrow skull measuring 65 centimeters, with a huge mouth studded with sharp teeth, could have swallowed a slow-moving person, if of course there had been any at that time. He lived on the dry land about 200 million years ago, as did many others when Antarctica was free of ice. Another interesting creature was the Glacialosaurus, a sauropodomorph and distant relative of the famous giant long-necked sauropods. However, the Glacialosaurus was much more modest in size. In all likelihood, it averaged 7.6 meters in length, besides weighing significantly less, 4 to 7 tons, which permitted it to rise briefly on 2 legs. Who would have thought that 90 million years ago, near the South Pole, the average air temperature in the summer was 19 degrees Celsius, that it was a tropical, green world, rich in flora and fauna? Now these are cold lands, similar to Mars. So what happened? What sort of climatic occurrence could have prompted such global changes? A giant meteorite? Maybe a great worldwide flood? Or perhaps the expansion of the Tasman Strait between Antarctica and Australia, which in previous geological epochs formed a single continent? No matter whatever happened, a thriving world came to an end. A new era had arrived, the era of the Ice Ages. And as it seems, after millions of years, this is normal for planets of the same type as the Earth. Who knows what cold worlds hundreds of light years away from us are hiding under a thick layer of ice?